Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, back for another Locked On Texas Tech special edition. It's voices from the YouTube comments as we dive into the fray. Appreciate all of those mixing it up daily in the YouTube comments with your questions, comments, allegations, or accusations, and have a couple of things to consider today, Chris, from that group. So let's get right on into it with question number one. Now, this question comes from our friend Mater Bagley. Hopefully the pronunciation correct. I can't even pronounce. Yep. Let's just read the question. Which he or she, I'm not sure of the gender of this name, so I apologize. He or she asks, which rotation or depth players are you thinking could step up into a more prominent role than currently projected? Any of the Cams, Brown, Valdez, Dickey, John Carlos Miller, Jordan Brown. It seems like the entire defense could feature a lot of rotation, they say. Chris, some of these names that are mentioned here, I feel like you and I have discussed so much that they may not even quite be surprises or dark horses, so you may choose to go with someone else entirely. But whether it's a name or maybe a position group that's ripe for someone to emerge from the shadows and make an impact, what's some of what comes to mind for you first?
Well, this is one of the best things about sports is that wouldn't you like to know who will emerge, and then make yourself sound real smart by talking that individual up a bunch, and then yet I can't look at this entire list and go all of them will emerge, even though there's a chance that is indeed the case.
Yeah,
I think the best way to talk about it is that, I mean, between like Cam Valdez and Cam Dickey, yeah, somebody's going to be RB2 and somebody's going to be, factor in a bit more than the other one behind Taj. You and I did the episode, on Friday where we felt like that, not only did somebody need to emerge, but you're hoping that somebody did, because you start looking ahead to next year. It's not just as you progress through this season, but you really need to get somebody else in there because that's what you'll be left with next year.
Yep.
And I think we've established that Cam Brown is going to, I mean, if Joey can be believed, and that he says that he's going to play in pretty much every game. I don't know if I quite buy that yet until I see it. And what I mean by that is, I mean, we could be talking about, no plays or just a handful of plays each game, until we're get a feel for that. So, but John Carlos Miller and Jordan Brown probably have, especially Miller, probably have a chance to factor in into, I don't want to say prominent roles, but because I guess in terms of, let's flip this around a bit. The only two guys that I would say are prominent, put in pen, are going to absolutely be featured and should showcase their respective positions. It's really Barron, Taj, and Josh Kelly in my eyes. Some may have issue with that. Some may want to fight for like a Coy Aiken or say like a Mason Tharp or, and I'm just talking offensive skill. But that's really, I mean, it's a short list. And so, there's a lot of people that could emerge and kind of, and then we kind of put too much stock into certain guys and they don't do what you think, or an injury comes into play. And so that's this is a great question because it's one that's impossible to answer, honestly. I can't sit here and tell you all of them are going to emerge, and yet you don't want to say none of them either. But that's the beauty of it, is trying to figure out what will happen, because somebody here or somebody else that wasn't listed absolutely will, and be more of a pleasant surprise, if you will. And that's the fun part about sports, because we can't necessarily envision that now, because if we could, we'd be sitting here talking about it.
Yeah, and there's so much opportunity with some of these position groups, like you're alluding to there, that somebody is going to factor in that's maybe not getting, I don't know, a whole lot of pub as far as preseason conversation or things like that leading into the off season. I'd really like to maybe just run it back on one I chose from a season ago and maybe mention his name again and just expect it to be a little bit more full time. I'm a Mike Dingle fan. I'm just going to remain that until I can't any longer. And I know, again, he's one of those kind of in that wide open sort of category of, yeah, he's going to get opportunity. But I really wonder if he may be someone that emerges not only as a guy that gets opportunity, but as a fairly consistent impact kind of guy. Because some of what we saw flash last year just kind of made me think that the more time he spends on the field, the more plays he's going to make, because he was noticeable whenever he was out there. It was just sort of intermittent, obviously, as to when we would see him out there. And I also think I'm going to stick with the defensive side. I'm so intrigued by DeBraylon Carroll. And I know he's gotten some pub as far as a transfer conversation goes. Obviously, one of the larger literal pieces of the transfer class. But those are two guys I'm really keeping an eye on that maybe not on your week one scouting report as far as dudes to keep an eye on. But they've got my attention, I would say.
Yeah, Dingle, because of just how it's like the one thing you can say about Dingle is that when something's out there, or when he's out there, something will happen. I mean, like, right. Something that they're like the director like snaps the deal, like, okay, action. I mean, when he's out there, something will happen. I mean, there is no doubt. And most of the time, good, but just because he's so fast and violent and energetic and all those things. And as we get closer to the season, it'll be interesting to see as we go through August. He's settling at star. They leave him an outside backer. Did they flirt with safety? Like, where does he find a home? What does the depth chart look like? All of those things. I think with somebody like DeBraylon Carroll, very experienced. I think James Hansen also. That's why those guys are here. I'll go defensive line, but I don't know if we want to say they'll emerge, but they're neither is listed as a starter. But I mean, I could throw the names to you of Dylan Spencer. No one more highly recruited on this team other than Micah Hudson than Dylan Spencer. And what about Amir Washington based on the last time we saw this team on the field? I mean, he's not some all-conference guy. He's not even a starter yet. But the last time we saw him, he's bringing down Cal's QB 3 times. And if that is any indication as to what he is capable of on a somewhat consistent basis, I mean, he belongs in that conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about Daniel Howard and Brandon Sharp and Leon Mackey and all McKinnon Dixon and just all those long lists of Adele Duckett, your sack leaders and things like that. Because it's been a minute, it's been a minute since you've really had a guy that could. And I don't know, he's more probably slated to start, but you know where I'm at. This is an Isaac Smith fan podcast, so I still think that the general public, the fan base, are largely, it's not uneducated, it's unaware of who he is. He is slated to start, so I can't say he would be off the radar, but I think he's got high-end potential, and from that standpoint, he could surprise a lot of not just this fan base, but really a lot of the fan bases that you come across during the season.
Boy, that'd be a nice position from which to surprise some of the opposition, a guy that can really get after the quarterback and battle there on the edge of the line of scrimmage. Before we move on, it is kind of startling whenever you describe something like you did a moment ago when you were talking about, hey, I think these are your featured guys. There's about 3 of them. Maybe 4 if you want to throw an offensive lineman in somewhere, but guys that are really cemented and are proven on this level. And I want to go back to the pass catcher category because I think you're right in large part. Like if you hadn't had a Josh Kelly edition or a Micah Hudson edition, I mean, it is open casting call, auditions, who wants to come out and make plays, because we've got open roles for all of the above. And it's still sort of that beyond Josh Kelly. I hope Micah Hudson is a proven commodity very, very quickly. We have high hopes, obviously, but haven't seen him on this level yet. But I wanted to ask you and have you remind me, because I think you threw one of these names out at us before, as far as just maybe the ability to be dynamic and some explosiveness. Don't know if it's going to be an every week thing or anything like that. But it was either DJ Crest or TJ West. I think you told me to maybe put a star beside their name, that while they're still very young guys, could have an opportunity to make some plays and have got some ability as far as being explosive. Which one was it, both of them, or which one did you highlight to me not too long ago?
Yeah, and there's a lot of younger receivers that redshirted last year. Then you added some to the mix this year, Micah Hudson being one of those. And at some point, those kids won't be young or they'll push their way through. But it was TJ West who I talked to you about. And the reason is because you're talking 100-meter, 200-meter, 400-meter, 800-meter relay. You know, he's a 10-7 guy in the 100 meters, which is, you know, fast enough. And he's just got some of that track speed to him and brings you something that I think that generally the team lacks. So, you know, you've got Kelby Volson, you've got DJ Crest, you know, and then you've got LJ John. I mean, you got a bunch of the guys that came in Micah's class. So that's, you know, Brady Boyd is one of the few middle classmen, if you will. And then it goes to, and the reason I say that about Josh Kelly being kind of proven is that you see a guy do it at the Power 5 level as much as he did and like consistently, you feel like you know what you're going to get on a Saturday afternoon. I think Coy Aiken is going to be close to emerging into that category at some point soon. I just think he's going to be one of your good players, and I don't know if he'll have crazy stats or, you know, medium, you know, number from a catches and yards standpoint. But like Caleb Douglas, I don't know if we can say we know the potential, we know the size, we know the speed. I just don't know if it's proven yet to look at it and go, I know what I'm going to get. You can't really do that necessarily with any of these tight ends either. I'd like to think I know what I'm going to get with Mason if he stays healthy. Yeah. I'd like to say the same about Conyers because they've done it and repeatedly, but they've both been kind of out of action at times and all those things. So it's just a small list. The longer that legitimate list is, the more chances you have where you're like, man, we're going to be pretty good because I just know what I'm going to get on a Saturday afternoon, which right now there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, thanks for that question. I think we gave you some names to chew on and kick them right back to us in the YouTube comments if you've got some others you think we missed as far as potential dark horse impact players or those who are rotationally speaking, maybe emerging from the fog as we get into the season. All right, let's get to submission number 2. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or elevate your car's game to the next level of performance. Superchargers, exhaust kits, LED headlights, roof racks, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether it's power, speed, or design you're into, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. Just head over to ebay.com/motors now, where you'll always find exactly what you're looking for and at no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. Now, this is a comment I wanted your thought on, Chris. Not really a question, but this is from Jason Baumgartner, Rosenbagger, who says, Joey spoke on Heartland, which is a podcast this week, about being more aggressive on the road early. So I think especially at Washington State and Arizona, look for some of these dynamic players getting the ball in out-of-the-box ways. So there's a lot to chew on here as far as the aggression on the road or sort of doing it in an unconventional or outside the box kind of fashion. And as you were talking about just a moment ago, from an individual standpoint, knowing what we're going to get out of some of these guys, I'm wondering what we're going to get in this year's version of the Road Raiders, because there's been a whole lot of emphasis this offseason on trying to get better away from Jones Stadium. Maybe what Jason is describing could be a part of that recipe. What do you think?
Yeah, and Joey mentioned on this particular podcast that, maybe it's taking the ball first if you win the toss. Maybe it's, some different things to get yourselves going and whatever. And to which I would remind everybody, was it lack of aggressiveness early out of the gates against Wyoming when you're up 17-0? No. I think we all looked at each other and were like, hey, man, this thing's going according to plan. Look out.
Pretty
like
good.
We're about to blow these dudes out. and they kept throwing it. I mean, trying to be aggressive. And then it was like, we got away from the run game a little bit. And then that would be a criticism as you didn't lean on that enough. But again, throwing, I would say, is being more aggressive and all those things. So I'm going to answer this. I think it's Joey has spent a lot of time with his guys, and I say his guys, his coaches, talking about trying to figure out ways to be better on the road. Okay, so there's that. It's clearly a thing. And it's going to be a thing the week of the Washington State game. It's going to be a thing the week of the Arizona game. If they were to win both of those games, maybe there's a little less chatter about said, game venue and what your record is and all those things. But they are simply trying to figure out the right formula or button to push to kind of be better away from home. And being aggressive in theory sounds great. It just comes down to playing better. And this is more of a mindset thing. This is more of a let's go in and like take the fight and sustain it, and all those things. It's not about trick plays or going for it on fourth down. Because there's a lot of times, man, you can be on the road, you go for it on a fourth down and you don't get it. Now you've ignited the opposing fan base and it's like, uh-oh, look out. Like we've
Right.
we've really done a number on our own selves, because not only is this crowd in it, but it was our poor execution on a fourth down play that caused it. And, so you can kind of press a bit too in trying to be aggressive. This to me is just about it's about the week of it is about the game and all those things, but it's just about the right mindset. And I think that what happened with that team last year in Wyoming was, to use that as an example, you get up 17-0, and a lot of those veterans, I think, maybe just were like, all right, man, yeah, we are good. We all this stuff everybody said about it, and then Wyoming was like, you know what? This is a house of horrors for a lot of folks. Let's just keep playing, keep playing. And they did, and they beat you in double overtime. But is the magic formula winning the toss and taking the ball, and that's going to fix all that ails you? Is a gadget play going to be there's smart aggressiveness and then irresponsible aggressive or forcing the aggression. And I just think that you shouldn't change per se how you're going to be as a team just because of the venue. Like if you feel like you can squeeze somebody, squeeze them. If you feel like that you want to get somebody a touch or a reverse or whatever, and you want to pull a gadget out, do it. I mean, go for it, whether it's home or away. And it's just tricky early on in the season because like you don't want to necessarily show all the things and all that. But I do know Zach Kitley and Joey McGuire actually would prefer to show a lot early on, because then teams have to prep for it all season long. So I don't know. I think this is one of the most fascinating things about this season and winning close games is doing it away from home if you want to go where you hope to.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of different ways to define aggression, just like you're saying. There's a lot of different ways to aggressively skin a cat, so to speak. And I mean, I feel like obviously Joey McGuire and his football team are in the category of an aggressive team, given decision making during his tenure. It's not just all about, this variety of play or whatever, but there's sometimes the calls that you make that could signify some aggression. And as we're talking about this, I'm just thinking back to, I think, Manhattan, Kansas, and I think it was year one, fourth down on your own 35, like first quarter action or something. And Hey, we're going for it. And that seems plenty damn aggressive to me, and plenty early in the game to be aggressive on the road. Didn't work out for you in that instance, but I guess I'm kind of wondering, how much more aggressive can you be than what they've been already? So I agree with a lot of what you're saying. There's not a magic bullet as far as like, hey, this is going to make us better equipped to win on the road, other than limiting mistakes, making big plays, and being at your best. Right? Easier said than done.
Because if you had you kicked the ball better in that game and made some of those field goals, or the one at the end of the half, and with the timing goofiness, with they didn't start the clock, or was there any time left, or whatever, you probably would have survived that game. But when you start missing some opportunities that are there to be had, whether it's a fourth down conversion or missing 3 points that you feel like you semi have in your back pocket, and you give it away, you just, you're compounding the problem, and things like that. So ultimately this just comes down to, are you good enough? And I do think the one thing about the Washington State trip that I hope that this team learns, that this year's version of the team learned from last year, is that these days, man, there's just not a safe lead. You've got to be mature and understand. You have to continue to execute and play hard and for a full game. We've talked about that number before, where the research was done. I think 42% of Big 12 games were one-score games, which means that maybe some folks had big leads in those games, but they ended up being half the time almost. They ended up being one-score games. And like for Washington State, for example, Ben Arbuckle, who's one of Zach Kittley's really good friends, is the OC there. They're going to throw the ball all over the place. They couldn't really run the ball. What do you think? Josh Kelly was featured in offense last year that it wasn't a run-heavy offense. It was a pass-heavy offense. And Zach and Ben are very familiar with each other and kind of the same coaching tree per se. There's going to be a lot of throwing the football there, which means no lead is safe. So you get a 17-point lead. You better learn from last year and continue to play and hard and be aggressive. That's what gets tricky, and that's where the analytics sometimes change. It tells you if you're behind and there's this much time left, we only have so many possessions left, you better be more aggressive. Sometimes with a big lead, and a lot of time left, it'll tell you, hey man, punt it and chill out. Like you don't need to.
That's what it says on the sheet. Chill out.
You may let the other team in this deal. So there's a fine line there of foot on the gas versus kind of letting it sit idle for a little bit. But Washington State, it's going to be beat juice 2.0 and all the things with the altitude. Not really, but just long ways away, and a sold out Mike Leach Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Washington State's deal, all on tap, that deal. And I hope you do learn from what went on in Laramie last year. Hopefully there's no 2-hour rain delay either. Even
without that, it'll be a late night for the body clocks coming from the central time zone and everything else that'll be added to that. So you got a little more time to prepare, Chris, but not very long. So hopefully you're getting beated up to this point. All right, man. We appreciate those comments. Appreciate the question. Please keep them coming. All of you tuning us in, and especially those commenting anything below, are helping us grow the show. So we appreciate that. And Chris, appreciate a little bonus time from you today. Thanks, man. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Keep hope alive. People enjoyed the weekend. Not many of those left without the football. Love the football. Almost have it back. So enjoy the weekend and Olympics or whatever you got going on this weekend. Enjoy some sports on TV. So anyway, we'll talk to you early next week.
I think the final one, if we're including Thursday, which at a certain age, Thursday was the weekend, maybe still is. Age is just a number. But in the midst of the final one without any footballs, we've got some preseason action and other things coming up as well. And then the real deal just around the corner. So for Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for being out there. And again, thanks for helping us grow the show by commenting anything below. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode if you haven't so far. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.